Jimmy Fallon has conducted thousands of interviews over 10 years, but none of them were interrupted like this. Jennifer Lawrence suddenly jumped up and started running toward the back rows of the studio. It was a Tuesday night at Studio 6B in Rockefeller Center. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Another celebrity interview. Another packed audience. Jennifer Lawrence was on the couch in that elegant black dress, mid-story about her latest film project, gesturing with her hands the way she always did, making the audience laugh with her trademark self-deprecating humor. Jimmy was doing what he does best, leaning forward, genuinely engaged, laughing at all the right moments, setting up the perfect comedic beats. The blue interview card sat on his desk, barely glanced at because the conversation was flowing naturally. This was television perfection. The kind of effortless chemistry that makes late-night interviews feel like watching two friends chat. And then Jennifer's eyes drifted. Just for a second. A casual glance toward the audience while she was talking, the way guests sometimes do to connect with the crowd. Her gaze swept across the first few rows, then the middle section, then. She stopped mid-sentence. Her hands froze mid-gesture. Her entire body went rigid. Jimmy noticed immediately. "Jen? You okay?" Jennifer didn't respond. She was staring at someone, in the back rows of the studio audience. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her breathing changed, becoming rapid and shallow. "Jennifer?" Jimmy leaned forward, concerned now, his host persona slipping into genuine worry. The audience began to sense something was wrong. The laughter faded. 300 people turned in their seats, trying to follow Jennifer's line of sight, trying to understand what had captured her attention so completely. And then Jennifer Lawrence stood up. Not the casual standing of someone adjusting in their seat. Not the polite rising to excuse herself. This was abrupt. Urgent. Her chair scraped backward with an audible screech. Jimmy's interview cards scattered across his desk as he instinctively reached out toward her. "Jennifer, what?" But she was already moving. Already stepping off the platform where the guest couch sat. Already walking, no, running, toward the audience section. Jimmy stopped mid-joke. The entire studio froze. The Roots stopped playing. Questlove's drumsticks hovered motionless in the air. The cameramen scrambled to follow Jennifer's movement, operators frantically adjusting angles to capture something that wasn't in the script, wasn't planned, wasn't supposed to happen. Jimmy stood up behind his desk, one hand gripping its edge, his face a mask of confusion and concern. In 10 years of hosting The Tonight Show, through countless surprise guests, unexpected pranks, and spontaneous musical performances, he had never, not once, had a guest simply leave mid-interview and run into the crowd. Jennifer pushed past audience members in the front rows. "Excuse me, sorry, excuse me," she muttered, her voice thick with emotion. People leaned back to let her through, their expressions mirroring the confusion rippling through the studio. The control room erupted into chaos. Director Dave Diamadi was shouting into his headset. "Stay on her! Camera 2, follow her! What is happening? Does anyone know what's happening?" Producer Gerard Bradford stood frozen behind Dave, one hand on his shoulder, staring at the monitors showing Jennifer Lawrence weaving through the audience toward the back rows. "Keep rolling," Gerard said quietly. "Whatever this is, we're keeping it." Jennifer reached the 8th row. She stopped in front of a woman sitting near the aisle. A woman in her late 50s with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. The woman wore jeans and a plain sweater, the kind of outfit you wear when you win free tickets to a late-night show through a radio contest and never expect anything more than a fun night out. The woman's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes, the same distinctive eyes that Jennifer Lawrence had, went wide with shock. "Mom?" Jennifer's voice cracked, barely audible but caught perfectly by the boom microphones overhead. The woman stood slowly, trembling. "Jenny?" They stared at each other for one impossible second. Then Jennifer collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing. The studio audience collectively gasped. Some started crying immediately, not fully understanding what they were witnessing but recognizing profound emotion when they saw it. Jimmy Fallon stood at his desk, hands still gripping the edge, his mouth open, completely paralyzed. He looked at the Roots, who were all staring at the scene unfolding in the audience. He looked at the cameras, at his producers frantically gesturing from the wings. And then he made a decision that would define his legacy as more than just a host. Jimmy stepped out from behind his desk and walked toward the audience. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 6 months earlier. Jennifer Lawrence wasn't always Jennifer Lawrence, Oscar-winning actress and household name. She was once just Jenny from Louisville, Kentucky, the girl who moved to New York at 14 to pursue an impossible dream while her mother, Karen, worked double shifts as a nurse to help pay for acting classes. Karen Lawrence had supported her daughter's dreams even when everyone else said it was crazy. Even when the rejections piled up. Even when the money got tight and Jenny wanted to quit and come home. "You're going to make it," Karen would tell her during their nightly phone calls, when Jenny was 17 and living in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates, going to auditions that went nowhere. "I know you will. I can feel it." But success came with a price. As Jennifer's career exploded after the Hunger Games, as she went from unknown to global superstar seemingly overnight, the phone calls became less frequent. Not because Jennifer stopped caring, but because she stopped having time. Filming schedules, press tours, award shows, endorsement deals. "I'll make it up to you," Jennifer would promise during their increasingly rare conversations. "When things calm down, we'll spend real time together." But things never calmed down. They only accelerated. 6 months ago, during a particularly brutal press tour, Jennifer had snapped at her mother on the phone. She couldn't even remember what it was about now, some request about visiting for a weekend Jennifer didn't have free, or maybe about Karen feeling neglected, or perhaps just the accumulated stress of both their lives colliding. "I can't do this right now, Mom," Jennifer had said, exhausted and irritable and not meaning the words the way they came out. "I'll call you when I have time." She'd hung up. And then she'd gotten on a plane to London for a premiere, and then to Tokyo for press, and then to Sydney, and then back to Los Angeles for reshoots, and somewhere in that blur of airports and hotels and red carpets, she'd forgotten to call back. 3 weeks became 2 months. Karen had stopped trying to reach her daughter, assuming Jennifer was too busy, too important now for simple phone calls with her mother from Kentucky. Jennifer had told herself she'd fix it. She'd carved out next month, no, next week, no, next month for sure, to fly home and make things right. But later has a way of stretching into forever when you're not careful. Tonight, Jennifer hadn't known her mother would be in the audience. Karen had won tickets to a radio contest in Louisville. All expenses paid trip to see The Tonight Show. She'd flown to New York alone, not wanting to bother her famous daughter, planning to just enjoy the show and tell Jennifer about it afterward. She'd been sitting in the 8th row for 45 minutes, watching her daughter on stage, close enough to see her but too far away to call out, separated by the invisible wall between celebrity and audience. And then Jennifer had glanced toward the crowd and seen her mother's face. Subscribe and leave a comment. Because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Jimmy reached the 8th row, where Jennifer was still holding her mother, both of them crying. The audience had gone completely silent, 300 people bearing witness to something raw and real happening in front of them. Jimmy stood there for a moment, unsure. In 10 years of hosting, no moment in his training had prepared him for this. The show had a schedule. Commercial breaks were planned. The next segment was queued up. Network executives were probably already on the phone with the control room. But Jimmy Fallon looked at Jennifer Lawrence sobbing in her mother's arms, and he made a choice. "Folks," Jimmy said, addressing the studio audience, his voice carrying that rare quality of absolute sincerity. "I think we need to stop for a minute here." He gestured to the Roots. "Guys, can we just pause everything?" Questlove nodded, setting his drumsticks down gently. The band went still. Jimmy turned to camera 1. If you're watching at home, something really important is happening right now. Jennifer just saw her mom in our audience. And I think... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think they needed this moment more than we need to finish this interview. The control room was in chaos. Gerard was on the phone with NBC executives. I know, but you need to see this. We're not cutting away. This is real. Dave Diamandis had stopped shouting. Every monitor in the control room showed the same thing. Jennifer Lawrence and her mother, holding each other in row 8, while Jimmy Fallon stood nearby with tears in his own eyes. Keep every camera on this, Dave said quietly. Every single angle. This is television history. On stage, Jimmy had pulled 2 chairs from the front row and brought them to the 8th row. Here, he said gently to Jennifer and Karen. Sit. Take your time. Jennifer pulled back from her mother, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, mascara streaking down her face. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I haven't called. I've been... Shh, Karen interrupted, cupping her daughter's face in her hands the way she used to when Jennifer was little. You're here now. That's all that matters. I didn't know you were here. I didn't know you'd be. Jennifer couldn't finish the sentence, overwhelmed by the impossibility of this moment. I won tickets, Karen explained, laughing through tears. Radio contest. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to bother you. I was just going to watch the show and... Her voice broke. And there you were, right there, and I couldn't even... Jimmy crouched beside them, one hand on Jennifer's shoulder. The audience was completely silent, many crying openly now, watching this reunion unfold. When was the last time you saw each other? Jimmy asked gently. 6 months, Jennifer whispered. 6 months ago. We had a fight. A stupid fight about nothing. And I kept meaning to fix it, but I was busy, and I thought I had time, and... She looked at her mother. I'm so sorry, Mom. Karen shook her head. You don't need to apologize for living your life, sweetheart. For chasing your dreams. I'm proud of you. So proud. But I forgot what was important, Jennifer said. I forgot that none of this. She gestured vaguely toward the stage, the cameras, the whole apparatus of fame. None of this matters without you. Behind the scenes, Fallon made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. Jimmy stood up and walked back to his desk. The audience watched him, confused, as he opened a drawer and pulled out something small. He walked back to row 8, where Jennifer and Karen were still sitting, holding hands. Jennifer, Jimmy said, holding out a small notebook. One of his own personal journals, the kind he uses to write jokes and ideas. I want you to have this. Jennifer looked at it, confused. Jimmy, I can't take your... Yes, you can, he insisted gently. Because I want you to write something in here. Right now. Something to your mom. And I want your mom to write something back to you. And I want you both to promise that you'll never let 6 months go by again without talking. Write that promise down. Make it real. He handed Jennifer a pen from his jacket pocket, the same pen he used to sign autographs after every show. Jennifer took the notebook with shaking hands. She wrote something quickly, tears falling onto the page, then handed it to her mother. Karen wrote her response, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. When they finished, Jennifer closed the notebook and looked at Jimmy. Thank you, she whispered. Jimmy smiled, wiping his own eyes. Keep it. Both of you. And don't forget what you promised each other. The audience rose as one. Not the excited applause of entertainment, but the quiet, powerful applause of people honoring something sacred. Jimmy helped Jennifer and Karen stand, then made an unprecedented decision. Mrs. Lawrence, Jimmy said, would you like to come sit on the couch for the rest of the interview? Karen laughed through tears. I'm not dressed for TV. You're perfect, Jimmy assured her. Come on. They walked together to the stage, Jennifer, her mother, and Jimmy, while the studio erupted in applause. The Roots played softly as they settled onto the couch together, mother and daughter holding hands. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The interview that followed wasn't about Jennifer's movie. It was about family, about priorities, about the things we let slip away when we're not paying attention. It was the most watched Tonight Show clip of the year. Jennifer keeps the notebook in her trailer on every film set. Inside the front cover, in her handwriting, "Call Mom every Sunday. No matter what." And every Sunday she does.